Hey guys, James here with Waterford Business Solutions, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about transferring from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. With all the new features that QuickBooks is rolling out with QuickBooks Online, it's becoming more and more competitive with the desktop counterpart. And the ability to integrate with more apps than desktop, the ability to use it anywhere, the ability to have an app on your smartphone, the ability to easily integrate with your accountant, it's gaining popularity. So a lot of people are beginning to integrate with QuickBooks Online and move from desktop to online. In doing that though, there's several things that we need to take into consideration. So I'm going to break this into a two-part series. First and foremost, how we transfer from desktop to online and what we want to look out for, what to prepare for, what to double check, how to make sure that online is going to make sense for you. That's going to be the first part. The second part is going to be how to transfer from desktop to online. I know I said that that was the first part, but this part here is going to specifically go over the transfer process and how it's going to work and what to expect here. So first and foremost, when we're moving from desktop to online, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that it makes sense for you to do it, and we want you to understand what will come over and what won't come over. Now QuickBooks has a handy dandy link here. And it's a very long link. I'm going to make sure that I put this in the comments section for y'all that gives us all this information about what it is, and it is updated all the time. You can see that this one was updated, recording this on August 13th, so it was updated about 2 months ago from when I'm recording this, which is great. So they're always updating it, and it keeps it fairly simple. So this is a great place to come just to double check. I'm going to go over kind of some high level things, what I see with most people running into with issues, questions, etc., going through this list. So first and foremost, attachments. If you add attachments in desktop, receipts, documents, bills, whatever, those attachments are not going to transfer. When they transfer over, your expense, your bill, whatever, will have no images, will have no purchase orders, will have no attachments, whether it be image or document based, on there. So if you rely on those attachments, this could be problematic for you. There is a reason for this. To transfer over all of these attachments, keep in mind online is based on servers that QuickBooks owns. So if we're transferring over these attachments, we're transferring over documents onto their servers, and when they allowed this, it ran into a bunch of issues with crashing the servers, having viruses get on the servers, so it's actually a safety feature here. So if you rely on your attachments, this may not make sense for you. The audit trail will also not convert over. That's going to be the log of who did what, when they did it, how it went in, etc., etc. When we transfer to online, all we're going to be able to see is when it was put into online. And while I'm talking about all these things transferring and not transferring, at the end of this, I'm going to tell you while it may be slightly problematic, there is a workaround to some of this stuff here. Bill payments. This is a big one that I've started seeing recently. You've got bill discounts in QuickBooks Desktop. Those discounts are going to transfer as a vendor credit and will still apply in QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online. However, in QuickBooks Online, you will have to, if you're going to get a discount on a bill, enter a vendor credit before you pay that bill, as there's no option to discount that bill before or while you're paying it. So you have to enter that discount before, that credit that you're going to get before you pay the bill if you want to apply that credit. Closing dates. If you've closed your books in QuickBooks Desktop, that closing date will convert, but no passwords will convert. So it will be a passwordless closing date. You can always go in and modify this once it comes over. Custom fields. This is a big one. If you've developed any custom fields, whether it be under a vendor, whether it be under a customer, whether it be on an invoice to bill, any custom fields do not convert. So if you have a custom field for, since I work with home service professionals, let's say you have a custom field under a customer's profile for the make and model of their AC unit, that will not transfer over. If you put on the invoice, you have a custom field on there for the service technician, that very well will not transfer over. So if you use these custom fields a lot, you could be losing a lot of information here. All of your jobs are going to convert over as sub-customers. There is a comparable thing, a better thing in online than jobs, and it's actually a very nice system. But when we transfer from desktop to online, they go as sub-customers, not as projects, which is the comparable thing in online. Now we can always convert those jobs, those sub-customers that are jobs, into projects later on. And I've got another video on my channel for that. But this is just how they're going to convert initially. For your customers, this information here, credit limit, job status, the start date, end date, descriptions, alternate contacts, customer types, all of this stuff will not transfer over. I'm not going to dig too deep into it. You can take a look right here, pause the video if you want to dig into it. But again, if you use this stuff a lot, most people don't, but if you do use this a lot, it will be problematic. In saying that, you can reset up some of this stuff. Price level is something that can be set up in QuickBooks Online. You can put in custom fields for customer type, and customer type is a field. It just doesn't come over. You can add in notes for alternate contacts, stuff like that. So this is stuff that you can get around, but if you've got a ton of information here, you will need to go ahead and redo it. What converts and what doesn't convert doesn't mean it doesn't exist in desktop. Do keep that in mind. Documents are like attachments. Those aren't going to convert. Inactive items. If you have inactivated a bank account, if you've inactivated a customer, if you've inactivated a vendor, something like that, so that they no longer show in desktop, if you inactivated them and you did not make sure that their balance was zero, they are going to come back and haunt you. This gets people all the time. They're able to delete or inactivate a bank account in desktop, even though that bank account still has a balance left. And when it comes over to online, that bank account is back. A bank account, to be able to close it out in online, must equal zero. Have no open transactions for a customer or a vendor. They don't owe you any money. You don't owe them any money. Stuff like that. So if that is not the case, these will come over as active and you will have to re-inactivate them. Inventory can come over, but one thing to keep in mind with inventory here is inventory in online only happens in FIFO. There is no other inventory. Desktop gives you several different inventory costing methods, but online will only give you FIFO inventory costing. Invoices. Everything will basically come over, again, unless you've created a specific custom field. But progress invoices, those are going to come over. The subtotals, a lot of this stuff, they come over. They're just going to change what they look like. So do keep that in mind. If you've customized your sales templates, you are going to have to re-customize them in QuickBooks Online. The customization will not move over. Memorized reports. If you've got a memorized report, a report that you love in desktop, it will not transfer over. You will have to resave, recreate, and resave that memorized report. Memorized transactions. Those won't transfer either. You will have to re-memorize them, reset them up. Users, passwords, access, everything like that does not transfer over. You will have to reset up all of this information. It's a safety thing. more than anything, because you may not want the same people who had access to desktop to have access to online. It's not difficult, but just be aware of it. Payroll. Payroll will transfer. The checks will transfer so that everything stays reconciled, so that everything is there. A lot of times your employees will transfer. Their social security numbers will transfer. The genders, the birth dates, all of that will transfer. However, if you are transferring payroll from desktop to online, you need to go through and double check everything. While a lot of times it does transfer, sometimes it doesn't transfer to the right person, sometimes it doesn't transfer at all. So do always go back and double check this. The other thing here is once it transfers, you will have to go through and set up the payroll in QuickBooks Online. Set up your past payments, set up your past expenses, everything like that, so that they now know how to file your taxes. QuickBooks Desktop Payroll is not the same as QuickBooks Online Payroll. And that's another thing. If you're paying for desktop payroll, make sure you cancel desktop payroll, because their subscription will not transfer to online's payroll subscription. Price levels will not transfer to QuickBooks Online. There are ways to automatically do it. It's not considered a price level, but there are ways to do it. Closed purchase orders, those aren't going to transfer over, but if they're open, they will go ahead and transfer over. Reconcile. Anything that you've reconciled will transfer over as a reconciled transaction. However, your reconciliation reports will not transfer to QuickBooks Online. Recurring transactions. If you've set up recurring transactions, most of the time they will come over, but I do recommend reviewing all recurring transactions. Just like the payroll, sometimes they don't always come over correctly. Reimbursable expenses. If you've got a billable expense, a reimbursable expense, something like that, those will transfer over. It'll come over as a billable expense so that you can end up billing it out. One thing to keep in mind here is a lot of people create billable expenses and don't realize they're doing it in desktop. And then they get all these billable expenses and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Online does not hide things. It will show you a lot of stuff that desktop has hidden. We found open transactions, billable expenses, unpaid bills from 5 years ago that were never paid off in desktop, but they disappear. They weren't a top concern, and they do show up in online. So it's not unusual for things that were not closed out, taken care of correctly, to come back and haunt you. Reminders. Reminders won't transfer. Reports, the reports are different, so they're not going to transfer over. They're going to be a little bit different, but most of the time they're going to look the same. In saying that, the reports may not match up if you're matching up based off of cash basis. The only reports, if a transfer happens successfully, that will match is going to be accrual basis reports. If you are used to running cash basis reports, those more than likely will not match up. Sales tax can be tricky here. Always just double check your sales tax if you're transferring in the middle of a period, just because you want to double check, make sure everything is good to go there, and don't trust the sales tax conversion because it does get a little glitchy there. Users and permission. We already went over this with the passwords. Your users will not sync over. So this is kind of a high level of major things that I see being a problem with transferring over. But again, a lot of these have a comparable thing, unless it's just you have a ton of information in these areas. Most of the time it still makes sense to transfer, but just be aware of what may or may not transfer. I do always recommend reaching out to an online certified pro advisor, not a desktop certified pro advisor, but an online certified pro advisor, to go over and just double check your company specifically, as it may not always be the same case here. At the same time, while we're talking about this and we're going through everything here, the next step that we have to do is we need to determine which version of QuickBooks Online you're going to use. So there's 3 different versions of QuickBooks Online, and each one has its own little things. The best way to break it down is going to be if you do job costing, project costing, anything like that. If you have inventory, if you have 1099 contractors, if you need more than 3 users, if you do budgets, and you want to track your budgets and everything there, then you need to use Plus. If you don't do any of those items there, then you can use Essentials. However, if this new feature here, this is new, it's only been around for about a year now, but Advanced is very nice. As you see, there's a significant price jump there, but you have several other things here that you get with it. So you get some extra customized fields that you're able to use. You can batch import or batch input invoices, expenses, stuff like that. You can set up workflows for approval. You can do training, and you can get information, and it will back up your company data. It's very nice, and if you need more than 5 users and you need several of these options, Advanced is great. But the primary person that this is for is going to be your medium-sized businesses, i.e. people with more than 20 employees. If you don't have more than 20 employees, generally Plus is fine for you. And most people that I work with, I'd say about 85 to 90% of the people that I work with are either on Essentials or Plus. I'd say about 50 to 55% go with Plus, and 20 to 30% end up going with Essentials, with the remaining 10 to 15 going to Advanced. When you're doing this, make sure that you also, if you're going to choose Payroll, set up your Payroll subscription here. There's 3 different options for Payroll here. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but there's 3 different options. Choose which version you want, because if you don't choose, it's going to convert you over under Core Payroll here. So after we finish and we've gone through, we understand what's going to convert and what's not going to convert. We know which version of QuickBooks we want to use. Now we need to make sure that our file is eligible for converting. And so that's really going to happen through this product information screen. To pull this product information screen up, you're going to go to your keyboard and you're going to hit the F2 key. If you don't have an F2 key, or your F2 key has other buttons on it, hit the FN key. The FN key is generally over by your arrows or over by the home button, control button over here. And that will then bring up this product information screen. There's 3 major things that we're wanting to pull from here. First and foremost, it's going to be your product up here. Which version of QuickBooks are you using? If you're using desktop, it's going to convert one way. If you're using enterprise, it's going to convert another way, and we'll go into that in the next video. Then we also want to check the year. To do a conversion from desktop to online, you need to be within 3 years of the current year. So since it's 2020 right now, this version here would have to be updated to 2017 to be able to convert. Otherwise, it will not convert. The other thing we want to look at is this line right here, total targets. Total targets right here will tell us how many targets you have. To convert from desktop to online, we need to be below 350,000 targets. If you are above 350,000 targets, you will have to compress your file. What that means is we're going to choose an end date and say January 1st of 2019. Anything that happened before that, we won't have transaction details on. We'll just have journal entries to record all that. So if you're over 350,000 targets, you may lose data. In saying that, if you are over 350,000 targets, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do not do the transfer yourself. I don't recommend anyone doing the transfer themselves, but if you're over the 350,000 targets, especially do not do it yourself. There's a lot of extra steps here and a lot of things to keep your eyes open for. And so it's really good to find a pro advisor, an online certified pro advisor who knows what they're doing and what they're talking about here. So that's what we need to look for. The other thing is, once we close out of this screen, and I don't have an image of it, but in the top left corner of your QuickBooks version, you'll see a file item here. Obviously, I'm not in QuickBooks, so it's not going to bring up, but we're going to want to click on that. And there, about halfway down, it's going to show us whether we're in multi-user mode or single user mode. If we're in multi-user mode, we very well could be on a server. To transfer from desktop to online, we need to make sure that the QuickBooks file is located on the C drive like you see right here. If it's located on a server and not located on that computer's C drive, then it will not transfer and you will have to use that server to transfer. We'll go over a little bit of that in the next video. But for now, just keep that in mind. If it is on your C drive and you are in multi-user mode, you will have to switch into single user mode. Single user mode will lock everyone out so that you are the only one who can work in there. That's going to be the end of it for this video. Look out for the next video where we actually talk about the transfer process. But this goes over how to make sure your QuickBooks desktop file is eligible for conversion to online. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at Waterford Business Solutions. Shoot us an email at info@waterfordbusiness.com or give us a call at 229-584-8793. And we will be happy to set up a meeting to walk you through and talk about your company specifically. But this is a good overview of what to look for to see if you are eligible for a transfer to online or if it makes sense for you to transfer to online, because it does not make sense for everyone to transfer to online. In the meantime, guys, have a wonderful day and look for my next video.